the entertainment highlight of the week.
Red Ray Gun Limited presents
The Benji and Nick Show. Hello.
Hello.
Hello. Ha.
Hello.
Well, good morning.
Good afternoon.
Good day.
Good evening.
Good heavens.
Good gravy.
Loch Ness.
What? No.
Oh, no, nobody. Goodness.
Goodness.
Oh, you got the Loch Ness then.
Yeah,
Goodness.
thank
Loch
you.
Ness. Ah.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. You see, it's very difficult because we had a technical problem. Benji's recording disappeared. So we're doing it again.
Yes, luckily
we only got about 10 minutes in, didn't we?
Yeah, it was all right, but it was the first time my computer froze and went which isn't nice.
Not
so
interesting,
fingers
but true.
crossed
No.
that we'll get through this one.
Wait. No. Yes, that was the Loch Ness game. We're just going to leave it there. It's not really about Loch Ness, and it's not really a game.
It's just a thing that we do.
It's like a compulsion.
It's an addiction.
Anyway,
It's a
the
way
Benji
of
Nick
life.
Show.
It takes you over.
I'm not Benji.
And I'm not Nick, but we both love cult television. TV from the past, TV that you remember, TV that you'd rather forget, shows that don't get a lot of love and some that get an awful lot of love. We cover them all. Sometimes we like them, sometimes we don't. But that's the way the cookie crumbles. Now, Nick, what are we covering this week?
Well, we'll be talking about Captain Scarlet and the Mysterons, Episode 1, The Mysterons. That's the Super Marionation series. Marionettes, you see, and it's super. And new Captain Scarlet, Instrument of Destruction, Parts 1 and 2. That's the CGI version that was done in the 90s, was it? Was it the 90s?
2005.
2000. I was actually, yeah, oh, that's right, because Jamie Anderson, son of Jerry Anderson, the producer of these great series, yes, he was a sort of youth then. You know, he wasn't just a kiddie wink. Anyway, we'll be talking to Jamie, as we do, and hopefully for getting some insight into both those series from his late father's point of view. I did mention to him that we'd talk about this. I said, you'll have some expert point of views, and he just laughed.
Classic Jamie.
But first, the emails sent to podcast@nicholasbriggs.com. By the way, I can't guarantee that Jamie will be there. Who knows? Fingers crossed.
Well, why not? If not, we'll collar him another time. So this first email was sent on the 27th of the 8th, 2019, at the time 2027, from the future. It's from Huma Kilroy. Loving your podcast as usual. It's always the highlight of my week. You two always make me laugh. Laughed. You always put me in the loft. Yes, we build lofts. Can I suggest the brilliant 1980s comedy / drama Auf Wiedersehen Pet as a subject for a future podcast? It was a classic piece of television and was definitely a million miles better than Duty Free. All the best. Keep up the good work. Sent from my iPhone.
Well, the thing about it was that, it was a real mainstream success, wasn't it? Auf Wiedersehen Pet. It was really, the country was gripped by it. It's a story of Geordies going over to Germany, funnily enough. Auf Wiedersehen,
Germany, they went all over the place. They did different series. Oh, no, they didn't. No, I'm thinking of Soldier, where they went to different places in different series. But yeah, it had Jimmy Nail in it. Launched his career as a musician as well, didn't it?
Yeah, and Timothy Spall.
Yes.
Who's now a big movie star. And other people.
The geezer from Benidorm as well. What's his name? He's like, you know him. He's got really recognisable.
Are you still looking?
Yeah, yes. No, you'll know. It's worth a mention because he's Tim Healy.
Tim Healy, yeah.
Thought it was worth mentioning because he's very good, and I just wanted to big up Tim Healy, really.
Yeah.
Yes, there we go.
Well, I suppose we might do that. Yeah. How many years of it did they do?
Oh, they did it for a long time, didn't they? I've got it. I've got the info here. Started out in 1983 and finished around 2004.
Wow.
So that was a
what?
long
No, 2004, well, they came back and did a special.
They would have surely they would have come out. They did
they
did 5 series, 40 episodes.
Yes. And Noel Clarke was in the BBC version.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
these little Doctor Who links, you see. Yeah, Series 3 went on till... So it was Series 1 was 83 and 84, Series 2 was 86, Series 3 was 2002, and Series 4 was 2004. So there you go.
Well, everyone likes a good list. I'm listing to one side at the moment.
Oh, you should go see a doctor about that.
This one's from Mark Loudon. It's called Benji and Nick Show Shadows. Hi, you may have noticed that Talking Pictures TV are showing the old kids TV series Shadows. I don't recall if you've discussed it or not, but it's definitely worth a look. Okay, we have discussed it. Of course we have. I watched that Gareth Thomas one you mentioned where he's in it for just a day's worth of filming.
Afternoon.
If you're not familiar, it's the Twilight Zone in the style of Drama, which was an anthology kids drama thing, and I think the theme tune sort of went Drama. Is that how it went?
I think so. Drama.
Sounds like someone yawning. Drama. You're making me yawn just talking about it.
No, I've got an observation with Shadows that nearly all the episodes things just happen, but only at night, and only when other people don't witness them happening, is what I've realised is the majority of what it is. Somebody's shut in somewhere at night, visits somewhere at night, or chooses to stay somewhere at night, and thus something happens. It seems to be a common occurrence. They should have just called it At Night. They should have called it At Night, yeah. At Night with Terence Hardiman as the vicar.
Quite right. Now, this is the point, listeners, where the recording cut out last time, so fingers crossed we get over this bump. This is all new from now on. Well, it's all been new, of course. I remember watching an episode with Jenny Agutter, and I said, she came round, did she, to your place to watch it? I remember imagine you're watching the television and Jenny Agutter's suddenly there. Do you mind if I just have a cup of tea? Many years ago, at the old Bradford Museum of Film and Television Archive. Those were the days when you never got the chance to see old stuff like this very easily. I saw Ace of Wands and The Invasion, Doctor Who, for the first time there too. Wow. So, I wonder what... So that's from Mark. Thanks, Mark. I wonder what episode Jenny Agutter was in.
Well, I was just thinking, it's all The Invasion and Ace of Wands. Both are missing now. Well, there's some Ace of Wands, but a lot of it's missing.
Well, he would have just seen the
new stuff, yeah.
Yeah, the stuff that exists, not the new stuff.
Well, it depends how long ago it was. It was many years ago. It could have been the old Bradford Museum of... No, it wouldn't have been. I'm just talking out of my...
Hat.
And we got another one here from Becca Andrews. And that was sent on the 25th of the 8th, 2019 at 17:57. Great year.
1757? 1757. You read the email, I'll look it up.
Hello, Nick and Benji. I'm a new listener to your show, having discovered the podcast through the Jerry Anderson podcast, hosted by Jamie and Richard. I'm so glad that I did. I'm a big fan of Doctor Who, and I'm familiar with both of your work, especially with the always brilliant Big Finish productions. I'm looking forward to catching up on your past podcasts. As a newbie, I have to ask, what is the music? What is the music? And what is the music that plays in the background whilst you're both chatting about all things televisual? And also, apologies if you covered this before, but have you done an episode on Bugs, the mid/late 90s action/sci-fi themed series starring Jay Griffith, Craig McLaughlin, and Jesse Birdstall? It was a bit James Bond-esque and was sort of a precursor to Spooks, with a bit more of a sci-fi fantasy edge. Many thanks in advance. Keep up the excellent work.
Well, on the 23rd of June 1757, there was the Battle of Plassey. 3,000 British troops under Robert Clive defeat a 50,000-strong Indian army. Well, there you go. That's a bit of horrible...
that's pretty grim, isn't it, really?
Imperial oppression there. Meanwhile, Bugs. Well, I feel terrible because, Sam Clemens, son of Brian, is a very good friend of mine, but I never liked Bugs. But maybe we should reappraise that at some point.
I've never seen it, so it's gone completely
big at the time. How many series did they do of Bugs, I wonder?
It was out in 1995.
Mm-hmm. Oh, you've already looked it up.
Yeah. 95 to 1999, and it lasted for 4 series, so 40 episodes. Pretty healthy run.
That is good, isn't it? It can't have been as rubbish as I seems to remember it being.
Well, clearly not. Clearly not.
Wow.
Definitely one week. That's very niche. That's a good one to check out, isn't it?
Well, and since, I've been watching the new Avengers, which I didn't like at the time, which I really like now, I should reassess.
Can you still get bugs, I wonder?
I don't know.
Yes, you can is the answer. Yes, you can.
Okay. All right.
And what about the music? Am I right in thinking it's stock music?
It is stock music. I was trying to look it up, but I can't access it while I'm running the Pro Tools session. It's just it's a bit of stock jazz music that I paid for. You'll pay for this, Briggs. I wonder if I can just find out what the name of it is. It's called Java Jive, I think.
Java Jive.
Java Jive
music.
Java Jive.
Let's have a look.
Yeah, Java Jive.
Java Jive. So if you type in Java Jive, I don't know, stock music perhaps?
Yeah.
Then you might, if you're lucky, be able to find it, you see.
Java is coffee.
Coffee Jives, you see. I Love Coffee, I Love Tea is made popular by the Ink Spots in 1940.
Oh, really? Well, I mean, I don't think it's that actual piece.
It's not that actual piece, no.
No, because this is a stock piece.
Because I just clicked it and it was, I love coffee, I love tea, I like bananas. I like bananas. And bananas don't love me. Dear me. Well, there we have it anyway. There we go. That's knowledge for you there.
It is certainly knowledge, yes. And right now, this is only in my file, but you alerted me that a friend of yours had written in.
Yes, Tony, who is the he's the guitarist in my band that I was in 10 years ago called Red Was Here. And we recently got together to do a little bit of music. Yeah, very exciting, very exciting. Keep that on the old
I thought his name was Tony Wiltshire because he signed his email Tony Wiltshire. But it's Tony Mears.
He lives in Wiltshire. It is, in fact, Tony Mears, yes.
Tony Mears. Does he live anywhere near Stonehenge?
He does, I believe. I believe he does live near Stonehenge.
Stone from the left.
He says there's a lot of stones there. Mick Jagger.
Hey.
Mick Greenhouse.
Well, he sent it on the 29th of August at 1932.
Oh, not such a good year.
No, terrible.
It's all going downhill from there on, wasn't it?
After the Great Depression and everything. Right. Got very serious then. Messrs. Benji and Nick. Tony, if you're going to say Messrs, it should be Clifford and Briggs. But, let's not. Just because you're Benji's mate, I'm just going to victimise you. I am a recent convert to the podcast, although since you've mocked me, I'm now not listening to it again.
Yeah.
No, I love the back and forth between you two. Back
and forth.
There we go. I'll edit out the gaps so it seems like we're more in sync. I love the stupendous audio quality.
Well, I think that's down to the fact that we both share the same microphone. We've both got the same model, so I think it's going to sound incredibly similar.
Yeah.
About them frequencies.
Is he talking about the consistency, do you think?
He was talking about the how good quality it sounds, like actual quality.
Well, some podcasts really sound ropey, don't they?
Some are like, okay, so we're going to talk about the aliens.
Yes. Hello. Yes, we're having a lot of fun here.
Yes. Just lots of touching things. Oh no, I've dropped it. Yes, no, we try our best.
That'll be us mocking all other podcasts. Very
such elitists.
Yes, a very horrible way, unfair. Yeah. Also, and I love so many of your chosen topics. Well, now we're going to be talking about screwdrivers. Now, I write in to beg a favour, something I hope tickles both your cult and sci-fi fancy. Might you engage in a friendly discussion of the various Star Trek spin-offs? By that I mean TNG, that's the Next Generation, folks. DS9, that's rubbish. I mean, that's Deep Space Nine. Voyager, Enterprise, Discovery, and the upcoming Picard. I'm in the rather unpopular camp of thinking DS9 was the greatest of them all. You are indeed. That's such an early adopter of the season-long story arc. That's true. Combined with that thrilling ending, not to mention a person of colour leading the entire endeavour. Very good point. I wonder what triumphs and disaster. Oh, triumph. Sorry, he hasn't put the H in.
Donald Trump thinks.
Triumph.
Well, I think it's going to be a fantastic series. It's one of my favourites. Watched it religiously through the campaign.
What triumphs and disasters you both consider among them? Warmest regards, Tony Wiltshire. He sends warm regards, and I've done nothing but be snipey and snippy and snarky. So I'd like to issue a full official apology on behalf of me. Thank you, Tony. Well, we could have a quick mini discussion about it now. You're not that familiar with all the Star Treks, are you?
I'm working my way through them all because I came to it with the original series, which I absolutely love.
Yes.
Then moved on to the Next Generation, which I absolutely didn't love until about series 3? Late series 2, series 3, yeah, when
series
it gets
3 is
rocking.
when it takes off.
Series 3 when it gets rocking, and then suddenly it's like, wow, this is the show.
Yeah.
Talking to Tony about it the weekend, saying like that Borg 2-part, the Borg cliffhanger, absolutely like
best of both worlds. Yeah,
I think it's like one of the greatest cliffhangers television history. It's just absolutely out there. Oh,
who's ringing you?
I keep getting phone calls from Manchester.
Yeah,
but should we see who it is? I've no idea.
It's the phone people.
Hello. Yep, that's just them checking that I've picked up my phone, that my phone number is active, therefore they can bombard me with horrible data and things. But no,
well done.
I think that 2-parter, I think is that cliffhanger is absolutely superb. And then from then on until Discovery, it all gets a bit patchy for me. Now, DS9 is one of those ones, isn't it? It's a real Marmite.
Well, I mean, to slightly contradict that, I don't hate it at all, but I just got bored of it, very quickly. And it was great to have a person of colour leading the entire endeavour, but I didn't warm to that character. I found it a most odd performance. Then I saw him being interviewed by William Shatner recently in a sort of film where William Shatner goes around and talks to all the captains. It's called something like The Captains or something.
Funny that.
And I can't remember, what is the name of the actor who plays Sisko?
Benjamin Sisko is a fictional character played by Avery Brooks.
Avery Brooks. Yeah. Well, and in the interview with William Shatner, he insists on doing all the answers in the form of jazz played on a piano.
Oh, that's cool. What a cool guy.
So he is
my type of person.
He's completely bonkers.
I mean, I watched half of the first episode of DS9. I watched half of that first episode yesterday. I thought it was quite interesting. But the problem is, though, I always love all the first episodes because they're always getting all the stuff on the ship and doing all that business. So I find that I find that very exciting.
Well, beginnings and endings are very good, you see. They're always more. The stakes seem higher.
It's very true.
Writing a good drama is to write something that constantly feels like a beginning and an end. It's quite, even though it's a middle. And other wisdom, in inverted commas. I did watch some of the later episodes. I'm not sure whether I watched the last episode, but yeah, it certainly went up a gear. They got a ship called the Defiant, I seem to remember, and Worf from Next Generation came across into DS9. Yeah.
Yeah, Worf. Absolutely. Yeah, I remember somebody telling me that he was involved, and I was like, oh, wow, I thought I might give that a go because I love Worf.
Because when they did one of the Next Gen movies, they had to find a way of getting Worf back into the Next Gen team, because so they had him on the Defiant fighting Borg and stuff. Anyway, so then sounds like he's fighting a famous tennis player.
It goes on to Voyager, doesn't it? Now, I have no knowledge of Voyager at all.
I lost interest in Voyager pretty quickly as well. But I did, for the first time ever, watch the final episode of it recently and rather enjoyed it. Yeah,
okay, so would you recommend it to somebody that's not seen it before?
Yes, I mean, it's very much it's kind of harking back to the original Star Trek, except you know what the premise of it is do you?
I didn't know. I know absolutely nothing.
Right, it's the Starship Voyager gets accidentally catapulted into the Delta Quadrant or the Alpha. I don't know which quadrant, but yeah, basically beyond, so far away they can't return to Federation space.
Oh, that's frightening.
So yes, they're stuck in a completely unknown sector of space with no friends, so they're constantly trying to get back.
As you would. I mean, you wouldn't be stuck there, would you?
Oh yes, but it takes them, I don't know how many years. It takes them a very long time.
By which time they'd all got families and lives in that particular part of space, and they all called it a day and just stayed there.
Yeah, well, I just lost interest after about a year, I have to say. But I have dipped into the odd episode now and again, and it's jolly good Star Trek and very good cast, all that. Which can be said of DS9 as well.
But, I mean, I'm just going to say it. The one here which doesn't get the good reviews is Enterprise. I know, which I think is very unfair. It's got a good concept, Enterprise, with,
I like
going
Enterprise.
back to the roots, as it were.
But, I like it.
It's a deeply personal thing, isn't it? Star Trek.
It's not perfect, and people hate the ending. I rather liked the ending. I thought Scott Bakula was a fantastically charismatic captain. I thought it was the most sophisticated commander performance, really. I loved it, and also the writing was a bit more sophisticated. But of course, it gets even more sophisticated and slightly outlandish in Discovery, which has a very bumpy beginning for me. But I thought the second season of Discovery was great. But Discovery is kind of hated by hardcore Star Trek fans. I've seen some hilarious podcast things of fans just laughing at it, and their mockery is infectious, but I don't think entirely justifiable.
I mean, I came to Discovery as somebody, I hadn't even watched The Next Generation by that point. That's how new to Star Trek I really am.
Wow. You were only young, Benji.
But, I mean, it was
only
always...
a poor little sparrow.
I'm just a sparrow. But I always remember it being on as growing up. It was always on. I remember going to other friends' houses and Star Trek was on, but it just wasn't it wasn't something that I suppose was on in my life, I guess. But I came to Discovery with an open mind and came away thinking it's great. I've not got around to Series 2 yet because I've been too happy watching all the older stuff. All right.
Well, the second series is much better. But then, I mean, if you know the original Star Trek, the second series of Discovery is even more exciting because it's got all sorts of references to the original Star Trek series. One of the episodes starts with a pre-title sequence, which is basically the original series.
That's my kind of show, straight away.
It's a bit like what Stephen Moffat did in Twice Upon a Time. At the beginning.
Yes.
Yeah. Anyway, and Picard, well, I've seen the trailer of it. My annoyance about Picard is that it's being aired exclusively on a platform I don't subscribe to and have no intention of subscribing to. So I'm not sure how I'm ever going to see it.
Well, what we'll have to do a... We'll watch it together when it comes out, Nick. Okay. I'll use my login and we'll watch it and do a special for the podcast because that'll be fun.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Yeah,
right. Yeah. That's legal. Yeah.
Watching with a friend.
So, Tony, I don't feel bad about liking DS9. I mean, my good friend Tom Spilsbury, the ex-editor of Doctor Who magazine, loves DS9 and goes on about it on Twitter an awful lot. And I mock him, and he resists. And because he is certain in his belief. And good for him, and good for you too. And thank you very much for writing in. Do write in again. That was a particularly good email.
That was a good section, wasn't it? A good section. An unexpected section for regular podcasteers who did not expect such a thing.
Now on to the main topic. First of all, Captain Scarlet, the Mysterons. I have taken the time to write some notes that I wrote, which I thought might just... My crazy notes might make us chortle as we go along, or might make us go, what? What's he said there? But anyway, yeah, Captain Scarlet, the Mysterons. This is Super Mario Nation. It's puppets. You can see the strings. They're a smaller design than the Thunderbirds ones, which... was one of the famous preceding series. they tried to make them look more realistic, didn't they?
Yeah, it's all about the scale, isn't it? Smaller scale in terms of sort of proportions.
Yes, the proportions work, whereas the old puppets used to have very big heads. So
it's different.
Get all the workings inside, yeah.
It's a completely different kettle of fish, this show, isn't it, to something like Thunderbirds and Stingray. It's very different in its...
What do you think of the concept?
I love it. I love the concept. And
Describe the concept.
The concept is that the human race opens fire on an alien race on the planet Mars. It was actually misconstrued because the alien race at this point were actually being perfectly polite and kind.
Just offering them coffee.
But because they opened fire
for a nuclear weapon.
Because they opened fired, the Mysterons, as they're called, the evil race, decided to attack the Earth. So it's all about Captain Scarlet, who is indestructible, and Captain Black, who is the baddie. Both have been kind of manipulated by the Mysterons, and that is the series. And Captain Scarlet's trying to thwart Captain Black from essentially destroying the Earth in a variety of ways.
Yeah. I love the way they set it up, where they sort of say, our revenge will be very slow and we'll take every episode of this series to complete. You know what I mean? It's like, we're much more powerful than you. We could just swatch it. They could swat Earth out of existence, but instead they decide to go the circuitous route.
They want to have a bit of fun in the process. And you can just imagine, because Captain Black's there, you imagine him with a little pen and paper. Yes, and you're going to do this. What's the date? 22nd of July. Kill the yes, I've got that in. Right, okay, do you mind just rough 4 o'clock? 4:30. I'll put you in for there. Right.
But it is odd, isn't it, really, when they've got the ability to take over Captain Black. Why don't they just have Captain Black fly back to Earth in 0X and have him, because he's on Mars on a mission, and have him crash into a huge nuclear reactor on Earth and blow the planet up? But no, they send him back, and he just sort of hangs around and does creepy, weird things and stands in a graveyard. The concept doesn't bear close examination, but it is fascinating. My point, I was asking you to tell us about the concept because this is a kids series, right, with puppets. And back in the day, no adult would have wanted to watch this particularly. They would have watched it because their children were watching it. And it's so dark, isn't it?
It's incredibly dark, yeah.
I mean, as some of the points we'll make as we go through will illustrate, it's about death and reincarnation and exploitation. And it's very violent. There's a lot of death in it. They wouldn't have that in a kids' show now. They just wouldn't do it.
Well, even with its, I mean, if we're going to go through this sequential, I won't say it, but even with the new Captain Scarlet broadcast in 2005, a lot of death in that as well.
Yeah,
death,
very much in the
violence
the spirit of the original.
And I would go so far as to say that, I mean, that show was on 2005. I would go so far as to say that I don't think they would necessarily make something like that now for children.
No, I think you're absolutely right.
And that's not been, we're as we approach 2020, it's about 15 odd years ago.
Are you some sort of mathematician?
Yes, I do believe that contraflictually the hydroponic subtraction method is the best. Yes.
Well, yeah, but you're right. 2005 onto 2020 is 15 years. But yeah, it's the note I made here was there's a camera obscura in the Martian base. The Martian base, which is made up of weird utensils with light shining through them, and instead of having a screen, it's like, a camera obscura where there's a sort of mirror thing that reflects an image onto a circular table. And the Martians have that. With all their advanced technology, they use a camera obscura to view things.
I mean, I have to say, I loved that sequence with all the wonderful glowing, shimmering city. I thought it looked gorgeous. I thought it was really clever.
Beautifully retro.
It was
and all
really
those sort
clever.
of electronic noises by Barry Gray, some of which sound
The
very
Daleks.
similar. So yeah, to
It's exactly the same.
Daleks,
Exactly the same sound.
They say they have the power of reversing matter, which apparently means they create a better name for that in New Captain Scarlet, don't they? What do they call it? Retro metabolizing.
Yeah. Reversing matter. Yeah, sounds a bit silly, doesn't it? Really.
But of course, you first see Captain Black in the Martian excursion vehicle. And I thought, it's Captain Black. He looks quite nice, actually. And of course, he's just got a nice open face. But then when he gets affected by the Mystrons, he's got an evil face.
Yeah, and you think, now we know he's the baddie. I mean, he's Captain Black anyway. I mean, he's definitely...
They make him unshaven. That makes him evil.
Bad guys don't shave. Apart from Bond villains, in which they probably do shave. So we both got beards, Nick. Does that mean... Are we the bad guys?
Yes, I am.
You certainly are. You part-time bad guy.
Part-time, full-time idiot.
Full-time swine.
I noticed for the first time when we saw the Destiny Angels. The Angels. Destiny Angel is one of the angels. They're the pilots. Well, they are the intercept craft on Cloud Base, which is this huge hunk of metal and technology which inexplicably hovers in the sort of upper atmosphere of Earth. Cloud Base, remember that name. Because they're angels, there's all this harp music all the time, isn't there?
The music is...
it just goes on and on and on.
The music and a lot of the sound effects are sort of burnt to my brain because I spent quite a few hours working on the Big Finish re-release of the audio stories. And so a lot of it... Because especially with the audio stories, they cut out a few scenes, so when it got to a bit that I recognised, it was so weird. Suddenly I was like, oh yes, now the music is a yeah, so good.
I was also very pleased to notice that in your tradition of saying Cyberman, Captain Scarlet calls, when he first mentions the Mysterons, he calls them the Mysterons.
The Mysterons. It's like you've been possessed by them. I'm pretty sure you should at least know who's possessing you.
And of course, a famous bit of Captain Scarlet is the boom, 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 when they
changes,
scene.
Doesn't it? In the new Captain Scarlet,
it sort of goes boom, 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 boom.
Yeah, they sort of say, we can't do the same one. Just give us a couple of bums. Dum 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 dum.
Captain Scarlet's bums.
Bad gum. Conveyor belts you put here. I can't remember any conveyor belts at all.
Oh yeah, people move around. I remember at the
time.
Oh
yes, I know.
They move around on conveyor belts because the puppets were no good at walking, so they have this sort of futuristic thing where they stand on a bit of floor and it goes, and they just stand there for ages with it walking along like a travelator. And
I love that bit. You know when they were going through those doors.
Why no one just walks and thinks, I can't wait half an hour to get to that lift. I'm just going to walk to it.
Yeah, well, it's like an airport, isn't it? You know, when you go on those conveyor belts there and you end up walking and then you get that weird sensation of you're actually moving pretty fast because you're moving on you're walking on a moving surface.
But you wouldn't just stand on a travelator, would you?
Travelator.
That's what they're called,
The travelator.
Yeah.
Activate the travelator.
Some people
Captain
do
Brown's cigarettes, I've written here. What does that mean? Why have I written that?
I know that there's a reference to cigarettes in this, aren't there? Which actually sort of really took me by surprise because you're just not used to. But even in my time growing up, people used to smoke and I mean that's one of the things I was talking about on my Facebook the other day. I saw an article about stopping smoking on telly programs and stuff, and it's a tough one. Kids telly is a no for me.
I know, it was just so much part of life in those days that, in order to show adults, they all had to be smoking. I mean, Jeff Tracy often was smoking in Thunderbirds, and there was I'm sure they were smoking in Stingray. And
I suppose for the children watching as well, they'll be sitting there watching Captain Scarlet whilst their father, I'm imagining reads the paper and smokes a fag.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's just the time.
I'm smoking a fag.
Now, listen here, I'm smoking a fag. Now, not a lot of people know that. I do because I could see the smoke and it stinks. Yeah, well, not a lot of people know that. Well, they do. Michael, go away. Sorry.
I remember my father smelling of tobacco, giving him a hug when I was a kid and just, and finding it sort of slightly reassuring because that was the smell of my dad. That's weird, isn't it?
I like the smell of tobacco, and I like it when my clothes smell like cigarettes. If I've been somewhere where people, I just like it. I don't know why.
Well,
I like the smell of it. It's weird.
You're a rebel. That's what it is. You're a rebel, mate.
I'm a rebel, mate.
Captain Brown combusting.
Scary.
He has smoke coming. I mean, basically, he's a suicide bomber, isn't he?
Yeah, I mean, it's very frightening the way it's done, isn't it, as well, though? Like, imagine looking over and seeing somebody just doing that, smoke coming out of them, and you think...
Yeah.
And I think, when they show it back and they show how he got away, the Earth President...
Yes.
I feel like they
he's
should...
blowing up the Earth President, that's the idea, isn't it?
I feel like they should have just done that originally and just cut out that whole scene of saying, oh, and you actually did this. Because it was all I did was sat there really confused for ages, thinking, why have we cut away from... Why is he there? Would have been easier just to get on with it.
I don't know what you're saying. Sorry, what do you mean?
Well, you know the bit where the desk it whizzes back.
Yes, the Earth President's
whizzes
desk
back.
whizzes back just as Captain Brown combusts.
But you don't see that in the first bit. You see the place go bang, and then he's in cloud base, and he's saying, "Oh yes, and this is what happened, and this is how you got away," or something like that. And then they show it back, and he whizzes backwards. Yeah, they should have just showed that in the first place and just cut out.
But that's the dramatic thing. What they're trying to con you is that you think, oh my God, the president's died and they've succeeded. And then they say, no, because what you didn't know, viewers, was that this happened. It's hilarious because when he blows up, you cut to the exterior of the building and the entire place is blown to pieces.
Destroyed.
Utterly destroyed. And then they show a piece of footage which shows that the Earth President escaped by going back through the wall. I thought, well, that wall was destroyed as well. So it's completely, it just nonsense.
Didn't, it just, I completely got what they were trying to do, but it just didn't quite sell it for me.
No, of course it didn't. It's rubbish. It's overblown and not particularly thought through well. Captain Scarlet smacks the President of Earth in the face, drawing blood, doesn't he? He's trying, and the President says, "No, come on, don't do this." He just goes smack in the face, and then there's blood all over his face. It's really horrible.
It's really to the real pushes the limits, doesn't it, of children's telly.
Yeah. The SPV, the Spectrum Pursuit Vehicle reveal in the truck.
Talk about irresponsible. The truck explodes at a petrol station. What an irresponsible pillock.
It is a very Jerry Anderson thing, isn't it? I remember when I went to see the Thunderbirds films with my mum, and she said she conned me that Esso had shares in the Thunderbirds film, or the other way round. I don't know. She said because there's so much explosion, everything explodes in the world of Jerry Anderson, doesn't it? If you snapped a Kit Kat, it would go.
So true.
There would be debris everywhere.
But if somebody said to me, who would you like? Somebody's making a movie and there's got to be explosions. I'd be like, right, get all of Jerry Anderson's people on the phone. I want all my explosions looking that good.
Yes. Oh yeah, they look good. But even with the SPV is hidden inside a fake truck. It can't just be in the back of a truck. It's actually the whole truck turns out to be a fake, and it opens up. It peels open, doesn't it? All the walls fall down, and you reveal it isn't a truck at all. It's a hiding place for the SPV. But instead of them just folding down, they have to go. And there's a slight explosion as they fly down. But as you say, it's parked right next to a petrol station.
It would have just been.
What happens if there's carnage?
Absolute carnage. But
luckily, Captain Scarlet is indestructible because Spectrum are so irresponsible.
Yeah, they are. Goodness gracious me! I love this next thing. M21 London Carview. It's just Carview is
Carview. They keep saying Carview.
Carview. The thing that I love it. Anything that brings it all, the fantasy world, back to reality. I just think it's so funny. We're in this exotic sort of different, romantic sort of daring, explosive world of Captain Scarlet. Then suddenly you're on the M21.
Yeah, but the point is, Benji, that by saying M21, they thought they were being really futuristic because in those days there was only the M1. So the M21, like that just sounded crazy. 21 motorways, just it's a bit like, in the Demons in Doctor Who, they have BBC 4, which just seems outrageous. Yeah. 4 BBCs? Goodness me, there are only 2 BBCs. What are you talking about?
I thought it was BBC 3, was it? Or was it?
Or was it BBC 3?
I think it was
maybe?
BBC 3, yeah.
It's the future, so you make the number higher.
Yeah, that's how it goes, isn't it?
So now if we were doing a new Captain Scarlet, it'd have to be the M2179834973973-8 Apple / in a bucket.
Yeah, because there isn't an there is not an M21.
Yeah, well, it's because Jerry Anderson copyrighted it.
Like you can go, the M20 links the M25 at Swanley to Folkestone, and then it jumps to the M23.
Surely there's no M21.
Yeah, because M9...
Well, I'm not surprised, because the Angels swoop down and destroy the motorway flyover, don't they? They just think, just destroy the flyover. It's interesting. It's a bit like the Avengers. There's no other people around. Why isn't the M21 busy?
Well, and that's the one thing. It's like when they go through the town. There's just nobody there. When the convoy goes through.
No, but they've cleared that for the president. I can accept that. But then when they go to the car view, why is it not a busy car park?
Can you imagine if it was now? Be like I'll never forget when we were in the in that van, and we left Maidenhead to go back on the motorway, and we just drove down that road, looked to just see just absolutely heaps and mounds of cars.
You'd need the Angels to come down and blow that
up.
That's terrible. That's mass murder. What am I talking about?
It's not mass murder if we get home on time.
SIG, and they unleash death.
I love the design of the Angels jets, and I love the sound of the jets as well. That sort of weird, sort of Vulcan-esque roar.
Yes. Yeah, brilliant, isn't it? Whoever designed a huge car park that just is up in the sky on some really
not even any like supports, to stop you from driving off the edge.
And as you show, one helicopter crashes into it and the whole lot comes tumbling down. Goodness me,
shoddy builders in that world. Shoddy everything.
Well,
I suppose they won't bother.
Crazy design, isn't it?
Well, they probably just think, should we put any effort into building this, because it's probably going to blow up like everything else in this world. Nah, sod it. All right, we'll just make it out of cardboard or something.
But it is a lovely design, and it's a beautiful, mad, futuristic thing. It's basically, if it's futuristic, it has to have a higher number. It has to be up in the sky.
Well, it was like the president's office, that wonderful suite he goes into. That I just thought everything in the 1960s just looked so like this vision of the future, this optimistic vision of how the future would look. And here we are, and everything looks pretty much the same, just maybe slightly cheaper and made out of plastic.
I've written down here, Mr. Uncontrolled Helicopter A42. I don't know why I've done that.
I don't know, but it had the thing was, the stick was moving around on its own. Very funky.
Oh, that's right. It was, yes, the thing to steer it. The Mystrons had taken control of a helicopter. You think, again, why don't the Mystrons take control of a nuclear bomb and blow it up? Why do they just take control of helicopters and crash them into things, or open fire on someone and miss? They don't hit Captain.
Perhaps they've got it as some form of weird warped entertainment on their planet.
Yes, on Mars they're back sort of playing the equivalent of a PS4. Let's do the helicopter game again. Captain Scarlet's hit face when Blue shoots him. Suddenly he's got that face really,
really weird. Yeah, that weird eye.
Yeah, I wonder whether they ever use that again.
It's very good though. I mean, it is. That it's a shocking end. It is a shocking ending.
But when he gets hit there and he goes, yeah! That's the gasp they use at the beginning in the title sequence where Captain Scarlet is shot and then he fires back and kills a villain. And they use Francis Matthews' voice as the person who's trying to kill Captain Scarlet. I think, how much would it have taken just to get someone else to do that? It's so... Francis Matthews as Captain Scarlet has such a distinctive voice. Even when he goes, yeah! You can tell it's him.
I suppose, time is short and tape is expensive.
I think they just thought, here's a gasp, we'll use that. Yeah.
Let's use that.
Anyway, in spite of that, I thought I'd be a bit bored by it, but I wasn't. I absolutely loved it.
Oh, I love it. Absolutely.
Whips along, doesn't it?
I think Captain Scarlet is probably my favourite of all of the Super Marionation stuff. I love it. I love how dark it is, and I love how ambitious it is. And so absolutely loved it. Yes.
I have a great affection for Stingray, but it is, gloriously nonsense. Anyway, boom, 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 boom. New Captain Scarlet. There's no Mistron voice inside the Martian city.
Yeah, I suppose there isn't. Yeah, it's completely different. I thought there were some very intelligent changes, like having Scarlet and Captain Black both up there. Because suddenly it's like, well, yeah, yes. Those two are the ones that are affected. This makes perfect sense.
I think it's a very sensible... Phil Ford has done some really brilliant reimagining here. I was thinking, these are the sort of choices that, had I done that, I would have done that sort of thing.
Yeah, I think there's some intelligent changes in there. Because I came to this new Captain Scarlet completely fresh. I've only seen the old clip of it on the telly. I've never sat down and watched new Captain Scarlet because at the 2005 I was doing other stuff.
Well, you know that it fared very, very badly, and then when I met Gerry Anderson for the second time, I asked him about it, and he was very bitter about it because ITV just put it on during a morning kids TV program, and they put it on and they cut each episode into 2 segments, and it was a kids TV program presented by Holly Willoughby, who's now a big presenter in the UK on.
It wasn't like
television.
Dig It or something like.
I don't know what
was she in.
Called.
It was used to be called like Dig It or Live and Kicking or something.
It wasn't Live and Kicking. That was on BBC. And they used to go, oh, well, anyway, Captain Scarlet's coming out, and what's he up to with the Mistrons? And they'd just go to it, and they'd show half the episode, and then they'd come back. They'd just cut out of the episode at some random point, and they said, well, we'll come back to see what Captain Scarlet's getting on with later. In the meantime, here's a custard pie in someone's face,
Yeah,
and Gerry Anderson was so cross about it but the trouble is, 2005 was a time when the whole concept of children's television was going through a real... children's television could no longer be big anymore because kids were starting to watch kids TV channels that adults would leave them to watch. There wasn't that thing that happened with Thunderbirds where whole families would sit down to watch kids TV. Different times.
Sort of landscape, isn't it, really?
Yes, that's the word. The landscape was changing. So,
but I mean, they kind of hit the mark right with something like, when Thunderbirds, they repeated that, I think, around that time, because I remember that was big again in the 2000s and it bounced back, and that was like quite good because they kind of put it on in the evenings. It was kind of
put it on 6 o'clock on BBC Two.
Yeah, like a kind of a little bit extra. So it would have been on CD UK by the looks of it, something like that.
Oh, that's what it was called. Yes,
Saturday mornings sort of thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
And with Holly Willoughby mostly hungover, according to what it says. Yeah, love Holly.
It had a very adult undercurrent. They did a lot of trying to making her dress up as a French maid and things.
I remember
like that.
Yeah, yes. I do remember that.
And it was all a bit suggestive, even though it was for kids. But the jokes were there for the grown-ups, for the dads. You know what I'm saying?
For the dads. Yeah. So we move on to the bagpipe funeral. Which I thought was rather brilliant. I like that. You don't see that on kids' telly, do you?
No, it was just a weird thing to do, wasn't it? Yes, Captain Black's funeral. Yeah. Very shiny coffin, I thought. It's exceptionally shiny coffin.
Yeah, it was, I mean, I suppose if I passed away, I'd probably want mine to be well polished.
Thank you very much.
Want to go out with a smear, would you?
That brings to mind, the whole thing about the CG animation. What did you think of it?
Do you know, I thought it was very effective. Because presumably at that time this would have cost quite a lot of money to do, because it's very ambitious. Animating people anyway.
They did motion capture as well. You can tell by the movements of the people, can't you? It's very realistic.
Him. It's a difficult thing to do anyway, and like syncing up mouths and stuff, but I think it really it looks brilliant. I think it looks really, really good.
Yeah, it was like the top work that it could be at that time, I think.
Definitely,
and I
yeah.
think they really pulled out the stops. It's really imaginatively directed and shot, if I can use that term with CG. The angles were incredible. Really impressive work, and you can tell that on some of the more complex moving shots it gets a bit grainy because it's just rendering time, and just they couldn't, they just couldn't do it as well as they can now. But I thought what it looks like is a really sophisticated animatic of what an animation would be now.
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
just the stage before they do the finishing touches, but that's all they could do then. It's it's a bit better than the Polar Express, but a step down from, I don't know, can't think
Bug's
of another
Life.
example. A Bug's Life, thank you. Interesting. And this is where we get the term retro-metabolizing, which I think is hilarious.
Retro-metabolizing. It's a
rather
great
than
phrase.
reverse matter. Why does Captain Black come out of his grave in a long black leather coat? Should
I
they
thought that
bury
was at
him
the
in
grave-
a long black leather coat?
Maybe it was the gravedigger's coat. Like did you see the long black coat when he immediately comes out? I suppose, yes, no, he did. Yeah,
You do, yeah.
Perhaps he loved that coat.
We must bury him with his long black sinister cloak in case he comes back as a bad guy.
Might get chilly down there. Make sure he wears his coat.
His long black sinister coat.
Make sure he brings his brolly.
His long black sinister brolly. And from blackness to colour. The rainbow hang glider. Wasn't that
Nice
fun?
touch. Very Roger Moore.
It was, of course, Spectrum.
Yeah, the spectrum colours there. I thought it was very nice. Thought, yeah, fair enough. Probably makes sense.
Oh, well, I mentioned the grainy action sequences here. Move on from that. The fainting farmer. What do you think
I
of the
like that,
fainting
yeah. With his horrible old teeth.
It's when one of the Spectrum vehicles suddenly takes off and flies over this farmer who's
great little
pulled
bit
out on his
there.
tractor, and you get that as it goes over, it looks down at him, and then he goes and passes out at the. It's a bit like where you have the old tramp who's something weird happens and goes past the old tramp and he's drinking.
And he looks at the bottle.
And he looks at
doesn't
the bottle as if to say, God, what's in this? Yeah. And notice in this they call cloud base sky base.
Yeah, I wonder what that was all about. Yeah, maybe it's to do with Star Wars. Yeah, you got the Cloud City.
I wonder. I mean, it's a much more realistic name for it. Realistic, laugh at me. The that businessman who gets crushed in the car. That's
terrifying,
horrible, isn't it? Ouch.
Terrifying. This one's dark. I think this particular series is darker than the original. Actually, that is dark, man. But excellently pulled off. Very Goldfinger.
Yeah, I mean, I thought that the guy was meant to be Lou Grade. He looked like Lou Grade, the guy who commissioned all the Jerry Anderson series back in the day. But I spoke to Jamie about it, and he revealed that it was actually meant to be his dad.
No way.
Yeah, they made it to look like Jerry Anderson, except a sort of fatter version, I suppose.
It's pretty grim though. They made it look like him and then shoved him in a car and killed him. That's not very nice, is it?
Well, also, we'll ask Jamie about the lines that Jerry wrote for this one, but there's one relating to that. Colonel, this is the most important fact you'll ever hear in your life. Colonel White wears a hat in a formal meeting.
What were they thinking? Anybody that buys a hat should understand the rules that hats carry with them. And if you don't understand the rules, and don't wear a hat.
The point that I'm making is that in the original series, I don't think Colonel White ever wore a hat. Cue avalanche of emails to tell me I'm wrong. You know what I mean? Colonel White, it's the captains who wear the hats, and there he is wearing a hat.
Colonel
That's
beyond
that. It's a big thing.
It is. I mean, perhaps he felt left out. Perhaps he's got a toupee on, and it was very windy in the office that day.
Well, it was a UN meeting, wasn't it?
Yeah, well.
Captain Scarlet bursts through the window to save him from being shot and gets shot himself.
Good moment. A very good moment.
Yeah,
the evil Russian guy sitting there.
Yeah. And the best line in the whole episode is, "Let's get the Sky Riders." They've never mentioned the Sky Riders before. They said, let's get the plot devices. We need a chase sequence.
I like the following line you put down here. Their pilots are all babes, man. Like, it just reminds me.
I was going to say that's actually my favourite line.
It reminds me of all like in the 90s when you're watching all these old American shows, they always like talk like that, like, yeah man, she's a bona fide babe.
Weren't these Russians though?
No, I thought that these guys were like,
they weren't in a hurry at all.
I thought they were like recruited to be involved. I don't know, like maybe they're just pilots.
Yeah, but they said Spectrum. That I love Spectrum. Their pilots are babes, man. I thought, ouch. Yeah, you wouldn't get that anymore, would you?
You would not get that anymore.
What did you think? There's the robot on the runway to signal to the angels to take off and land, and then you cut to inside, and there's a man inside the control room in Skybase doing it, and it's the
type of thing we'll see in reality soon.
The robot is reflecting his movements. Yeah.
I think that will be what will happen in the future. I can just see that happening. It's a very logical thing to do, is it not? One less person to keep on the runway, and you could probably improve visibility by having a robot that does stuff.
Yeah, I suppose so. And then you get pilots deliberately running them over just to be annoying.
Be an arse.
Yeah. I wonder whether it would hurt the man who's controlling it. So, I just got run over.
I felt that. My legs. Love the Russian tank. Yeah, I completely agree with you, Nick. Completely agree with you. It was a real old beast, wasn't it?
My goodness, it's like as big as a house.
It's indestructible, man.
Okay.
No, I thought new Captain Scarlet was very good. I thought they were both as pretty good as they both did what they needed to do very well. Both innovative in their own way.
Should we give it? I think it's 4 exclamation marks, isn't it, for both?
100% 4. Yeah, definitely, definitely.
And I like them both equally. I really the new Captain Scarlet. I remember I didn't like it when I first saw it. I thought, oh, this isn't right, But I loved it. I thought it was a beautiful piece of work. Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of the voices. And I feel terrible saying that because Wayne Forrester, I know Wayne, and he does a lot of stuff for Big Finish. And I thought it was a mistake to get him to do that sort of transatlantic accent for Captain Scarlet. But it's grown on me, It
is what it is. I think the second you acknowledge it for its own thing, suddenly you think, yeah, this is great.
I'm going to call Jamie Anderson because time is short. Let's see if he's around. Hello, Jamie.
Hello. How are you?
Good. We've just been talking about your dad's series. I can't remember what's called. No, Captain Scarlet and the Mistrons.
Never heard of it. Sorry, I don't think I can help you this time. Bye. no. Obviously, Spectrum is green, Nick and Benji.
And new Captain Scarlet.
Very good. Spectrum is still green in that case. And was there an overall winner in this bout of captains?
Benji?
We both kind of said they're both brilliant in their own way.
Well, how non-committal of you both. They are quite. It's amazing how for a kind of 2 versions of the same show, how different they are, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a really good reimagining, new Captain Scarlet. I said that I wasn't that fond of it when I first saw it, but I really, not just to please you.
Partially just to please me.
Not at all, actually. I really enjoyed it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that both suffer from similar things, which is, first episodes of a new series, you're ironing out the creases and working out things that do and don't work, and sometimes they don't reveal themselves until the pilot is done and you're into the rest of the series. So there's oddities in both.
Now, I promised Benji that you would tell us about the couple of particular lines, or at least one line that your dad wrote. Come on, then.
Yeah, well, I just... In new Captain Scarlet, which is such a weird way they were going to call it Captain Scarlet and the Return of the Mistrons, which I think would have been much better, but Dad insisted on new Captain Scarlet, which immediately weirdly dates it. Anyway, he was quite insistent in the early episodes that he wanted to get involved in the dialogue quite heavily and had some pretty clear ideas of the style of dialogue for various characters and ways of making the baddies quite sinister. And there's a bit in the opening of New Scarlet where a businessman is being kidnapped by Captain Black. And I can't remember the exact lines, but it's something like he says, "This isn't my way home, you idiot. Are you taking a shortcut?" And Captain Black says, "I'm cutting short your life."
Oh, yeah.
Which is
really, yeah.
neither sinister nor creepy, nor terribly effective.
Well, Benji's liking it.
Well, Benji, you're easily pleased. Dad would be very, very thrilled to know that. But I that was one of those lines where I just went, "Oh no, oh dear, really?" But it wasn't just Dad that was responsible for that. And I had this discussion with Phil Ford, who wrote a lot of the other scripts.
Well, he's credited as the writer, Phil Ford, isn't he?
Oh well, yeah. I mean, he wrote nearly everything. But again, it wasn't always Dad making these naff lines. And later in the series, there's a lot of stuff made of the romance between Scarlet and Destiny. And almost all of their flirty interactions are sick in the mouth worthy.
You're such an old romantic, Jamie.
Well, there's a particular one, and I can't remember the episode again. It's right at the end. It's like Scarlet's almost died, but he just made it. And the sight of Destiny, even though we know he's alive, makes him say something like, "Ah, I must be in heaven, Destiny," because she's there. I mean, come on. Does anybody actually... If anybody listening has actually got married off the back of a line like that, then let me know, but I'm pretty sure they immediately walked away from you if you said something like that.
Well, funny you should say that, but my wife... No. Benji, would you like to ask Jamie a question about Captain Scarlet?
About Captain... Yeah, I suppose, really, how old would Jamie have been when it was on?
When new Captain Scarlet was on, I was 20 years old.
So that's still within the young bracket, then?
I still consider myself in the young bracket now, and I'm not 20 now.
Well, what I mean by that is that with something like that it would have piqued your interests, not just with your dad's involvement. I mean, it's children's TV, but it's the type of thing...
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's kind of hard to imagine that, because obviously we was making it, and I was seeing it come through the pipeline. It's a bit like saying, imagine what it would be like to be a squirrel. Well, I can't, because I'm a human, so...
Yes, it's almost exactly like that, Jamie.
I thought he was a squirrel.
It's pretty much that. You can't possibly put yourself in that position. But yeah, no, there was some really great stuff. It's just that some of the dialogue...
I noticed that there was... I looked on the Wikipedia, and there was... it says there's an unaired pilot or something. Is that the one where they used the voices of...
Frankie Matthews and Ed Bishop, yeah. Where poor Frankie Matthews is doing a great Scarlet, but he does sound very elderly and throaty.
Is it the same episode?
No. It's a very, very short motion capture test. Scarlet and Blue recalled to duty. Black arrives on the deck of Cloud Base and says, I'm clear for duty. Check if you like. They check. It's fine, allegedly. He captures Blue, hypnotizes him, and has him drive some bombs towards a power plant or whatever, and Scarlet destroys a bridge as they're driving across and saves Blue.
Is it available anywhere?
It is on the YouTube, Nick Briggs.
Oh.
And listen out for the very end where Frankie Matthews says, it sounds like it's almost his last words, bless him. He says, "And this is only the beginning. SIG." And I mean, that's an amazing impression. If you hear it, you'll think I've just played it out there. But honestly, I mean, that was the thing, unfortunately, that killed the potential for the return of those voices. I mean, obviously they were deceased by the time or no longer working by the time the show went out. But that was the one thing that people complained about on the broadcasters going, they sound a bit old.
Yeah, they would have said that, wouldn't they? Yes. I like the way you say Frankie Matthews, which is presumably what your dad called him.
Yes. Well, I went to a convention, maybe in Coventry, years and years and years ago, where he was, and he sat next to me. And I think I called him Mr. Matthews, and he said, No, don't call me that. Call me Frankie. Your dad does.
Oh.
So, I mean, I was too young to really appreciate it, but in my mind now,
What was the budget per episode, if you know, that is?
Blooming well expensive, mate. I think it was about 600,000 an episode, which is huge for kids telly. I mean, some enormous live-action drama might be $1 million an hour, so therefore, it was still coming at less than Scarlet cost.
How on earth did they get the money to make it?
Do you really want a long-winded technical thing? They took advantage of a loophole in some fundraising rules and strung together 3 EIS funds.
What's
which
EIS?
Is not allowed.
Oh, right.
It's no longer allowed. It was a bit sort of not sure at the time, but it's definitely not allowed.
What does EIS stand for?
Enterprise Investment Scheme. It's a tax-efficient investment scheme where the investor immediately receives 30% rebate on their investment against their tax bill and is protected up to, I think, 50 pence in the pound on the investment if it all falls over.
Well, the brilliant thing.
I mean,
the brilliant thing about that explanation is that the picture and the sound broke up beautifully, and I'm not going to bother to get you to repeat it.
It's really boring.
And the complex explanation is 30% in a bucket.
That's exactly what I said, actually. Except I said peanut butter at the end, not in a bucket.
It's very similar. Very similar. Well, that's a fascinating insight.
Is it really?
Yes, it is, actually.
Good.
You've added value to the podcast.
Oh, well, I always try. Mostly fail.
Do you want one of Benji's stupid questions?
I would love a Benji stupid question.
In that case, let me load it up, yeah.
Took him by surprise there. He'd nodded off. He had a sleeping bag.
This is a really good one. What machine or appliance in your house aggravates you the most?
It's a good one, isn't it?
I think my dishwasher.
Right.
Well, the late dishwasher that I had was really annoying because 40% of the time it would randomly not clean anything after running a full cycle. And then I replaced it. What? No, not working?
No, I was going, ugh, because of that.
Oh, I see. You were sharing my frustration. I thought the internet wasn't working.
No.
And then I replaced it with a second-hand slimline dishwasher, which has a lower capacity and always makes you think, oh, the first dishwasher, if only that had worked, then I wouldn't have to do so many loads.
Well, thank you for that. I have to say that I've never had a dishwasher. I've mentioned this many times before. Probably,
really?
Yeah, never ever had it. Well, yeah, as you see, you're further up the social scale than me. It was never, and I've never had a kitchen. Personally, I've never had a kitchen big enough to fit one in. And also now,
even a slimline.
I'm about to say something outrageous. I've got my wife who rather enjoys washing up. In fact, about an hour ago, I was doing some washing up myself.
He loves it. He loves it.
I mean, when we're at the studio and we do we have the dishwasher there.
Yeah.
The stuff always comes out with bits of stuff caked on it. It seems to me like you have to do the washing up before you put it in the washer anyway.
Well, depends on the dishwasher and also the detritus on the plate, really. But
Well-
I feel like I don't even know you, Nick Briggs.
Well, I feel the same about anyone who has a dishwasher, which probably means I don't know anyone.
No, clearly.
No, my mother's never had one. See, she hasn't got one now. And the very idea of it is kind of like, I think if you've never had a dishwasher, it's like someone saying, oh, here's an automatic back scratcher. You don't have to bother to scratch your own back. And you just think, oh, for goodness sake,
Get a grip.
I'd like one of those.
See? All right. Well, we'll talk about this further when people aren't bothering to listen.
I think they probably stopped by now anyway,
Yeah,
to be honest.
come back! All right. Well, cheerio, mate.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
cheers, thanks for having
Lovely
me,
to hear
and,
from you as always.
Thanks for watching Captain Scarlet and
Yeah, loved
doing
it.
a nice compare and contrast and saying nice things.
Yeah, we loved it.
Spectrum is green.
Oh, he's so on brand. Ta-ta.
Bye.
There he goes.
Well, there we have it.
Well, what a long old podcast it's been.
Big old long one this week, yeah.
What are we going to do next week?
I don't know. What are your thoughts? Do we do a commentary?
I just want to remind people to write in to podcast@nicholasbriggs.com. We should do a commentary, shouldn't we? Hold on, I just want to see what am I doing next week. Oh goodness, it's going to be interesting. I want to know what your gut feeling is.
I don't know. It's one of those things. Doctor Who is a good. We've got a good fan base of Doctor Who, so maybe it'll bring some listeners in. Or do we stick with Benji and Nick style and do something completely different?
Oh, I don't know. It has to be something we're both very familiar with, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So it should be Doctor Who.
Should be Doctor Who, yeah.
What about the Pyramids of Mars?
Ooh, that's a good one. Yeah, let's do it. That'll keep us
Episode 1
going.
of Pyramids of Mars.
Yeah, just so we can hear the. Yeah. Okay. Pyramids of Mars. That was a just so we can hear the cat. That's a really good suggestion.
Meow, 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 meow.
Willy, willy, willy.
Plug, plug, plug. Right, that comes from another podcast, I think.
God blimey, it does,
That was a joke from the Big Finish podcast. There you are, see? A little bit of cross-fertilisation.
Cross-fertilisation.
Time now to get close to the microphone.
Oh, yeah, hello, yes.
Next time, Pyramids of Mars. But in the meantime, from me, Nick Briggs, it's goodbye.
And from me, Benji C, it's goodbye. Goodbye. And don't forget to subscribe as well. Do that. Please do that.
Yes. Pressing stop now. Ka-chunka.